Hello, I'm Nick from the Autokyleash, and in this film we're going to be talking about and making poppets. Now, some months ago we did do a podcast on poppets, and it's called Poppets to Hex and Protect. But this is a different sort of poppet altogether. It is without doubt the most powerful poppet I know about. It's really powerful magic. It can be used for hexing or for healing, but the specific thing about it is that it's based on spell work that is for an individual. You base it on an individual, so you are hexing or healing a specific person, and because you're doing that you can put so much more magic and so much more power into it. Now we need an awful lot of ingredients to make this poppet, so we're in my kitchen and we're going to be attempting to make some, and I'm going to film and show you how to make it. So it may end up looking a bit like a cookery program because we've got loads of ingredients to mix together. But it's where we're going to do it, and I hope it comes out and I hope you enjoy it. And it's a powerful magic, this. It's not something to be trifled with, and it should be done in ritual. But it's something perhaps you might need to know, might want to use at some point in the future. So we're going to give it a go. Now, making these poppets is quite a complicated affair, and there are 3 different sections as to how we make them, and each depends on the purpose for which we're going to make them. Now, the poppet we're going to make today is going to be for hexing. So the first thing we need to do is mix up all the herbs and other ingredients that we're going to use for a hexing poppet. Now, if we were going to use a healing poppet, obviously we'd use a totally different section of herbs. But now let's just have a look at what we are going to use for our hexing poppet. Right, so now we're ready to start making our poppet. Now, there are various sections to doing this, but the first thing we need to do is to mix up our dried herbs. And we're going to start off with this one, which is dried yew bark. Now, what we need to do is to shave this, grate it so that we have a small amount and it comes out in a really fine powder. Now, the yew is a very powerful tree and very special. Be aware though, its bark, as with most parts of the yew, is poisonous. Now, the second herbal content we need for this one is some oak moss. Now, oak moss is basically any moss that grows on an oak tree. And what it does is it absorbs the power of the oak tree. So what you're doing basically is doubling the strength of this particular herbal mixture. Having done that, we need one final dry ingredient, and this one is graveyard dust. Now, some people may think, oh, does that mean you've been out digging out soil from graves? No, actually it's not. Graveyard dust is in fact the dried roots of the wild valerian. The reason it's called graveyard dust is because the colour it goes when it's done, and the fact that it actually smells appalling. If this was smell-o-vision, you'd smell this. It is truly horrible stuff, but it's very powerful and ideal for this particular poppet. Then we just need to make sure we've cut that up. Most of it is ground already, but the oak moss needs just a few bits. Chop it up as fine as possible, because what we're after is something that we can mix together with fluids and a separate thing we'll come to later. So we don't want any big lumps of bark or chips or anything at all. It all has to be very fine. I've now transferred all the herb mixture we've just made into this small bowl. Now, the difference between this poppet and any other poppet is that we're trying to make this poppet specific to an individual. So we need something of that individual. In this jar I have some small pieces of cloth from clothes worn by the individual, 1 or 2 nail clippings, and a small piece of the individual's hair. Now, under normal circumstances, whilst I'm doing this, we would be in trance doing ritual, concentrating on that individual so that all the essence of that individual goes into this mixture. Now, that takes time and involves more perhaps people than just me, so the coven would be active involved in that. But we're making this for a video, so I can't go into that totally. You just have to work out how you're going to do it in ritual, get yourself in the right frame of mind, concentrate on the individual concerned so that their essence goes into this mixture. Having done that, we mix all the dried herbs together with the nail clippings, the hair and the cloth from the individual. Now comes some other added ingredients that we hadn't had out before. The first one is extract of hemlock. Now, hemlock grows wild, you can get it fairly easily. It's poisonous, be careful, but what we need to do is add just a few drops of extract of hemlock. And another ingredient we need is bog water. Now, bog water is a powerful dark energy, and you need to get it from, if you live where we do in Dorset, you won't have too much of a problem. On heathland you'll find plenty of deep dark bogs on the heath. Collect some of the bog water and that's all you need, just a drop. And finally, the last ingredient is one that is specifically oldcraft or ceremonial. Now this is the seed of Lilith. It's called a mummia. Basically there's no polite way of saying it, it's the extracted bodily fluids of both men and women who've been in sexual union, and this was made in ritual, and it is probably the most powerful substance known, and it is very powerful for this mixture. Just 1 or 2 drops, that's all that's required. Now we mix that all together. This is the magical essence that's going into our poppet, and it is extremely powerful. And equally, while you're mixing and all the time you're making this poppet, you're concentrating on the individual concerned. Be that for hexing or healing, it's important this poppet has a major and strong connection to the individual. Now we're coming to the serious part of making the poppet itself, and it may surprise you, but we're going to make ours out of bread. We're going to bake our own bread poppet. Now this is because we're using this poppet for hexing. If we were going to be using a poppet for healing, we'd want it perhaps more permanent and would make it out of clay. But for this, we're going to make it out of a bread mix. So we pour the bread mix into our bowl. Here, we now, again concentrating very hard, we mix in the herbs and the fluids that we've made in our magic potion, concentrating on the individual concerned. And we give that a very good mix up. So we want this whole bread man to be part of this individual that we are hexing or healing. Now there is one final ingredient to add to this that we always add at the end, and this is small portion of black horsehair, which binds the mixture together, gives it strength, and this mixture is as powerful as you'll ever find. This poppet will be the very most powerful one you've ever made. And the reason we're using bread is because we're now going to bake it. So we're using the fires of Lilith, the fluids of Lilith and the seed of Lilith. It cannot be more powerful. Obviously this dough takes some time to mix, but what you're doing whilst you're mixing this dough is you are concentrating on the individual. You are putting the individual's essence once more into this mixture. Those of you who make bread regularly will know that between kneading you need to allow your dough to sit, and we're going to use this opportunity to add one final and very important ingredient. So we're going to make a hole in the middle. And then you'll note also that during this poppet making we've used everything that's natural. Everything is wood or bone. There's no metal involved at all. This is the only time we use anything metal, and this is our sacred white-handled knife that we use for chopping herbs and the like. Now the last ingredient we're going to put in is a little gruesome, and you may not want to, but it will almost double the power of this poppet. So we need a drop of our own blood, which is why we have the knife. And we put, oh, that's quite a lot. And then having added our own blood, we can carry on kneading the bread, mixing it all together so the dough is truly mixed up. And now we're going to make our poppet. I have to excuse the plaster, I got a bit carried away with the bloodletting. Now this dough and this bread will be the essence of the individual we are healing or hexing. Even so, it's helpful for us to make this as similar as possible. Now, unless you're an expert sculptor, this is never going to be perfect, but you should be able to, you should be able to get the gender right. You should be able to make this so that you know at least who this is. And it is quite important. Now, I'm trying to shape this so that you get an idea of how to do it. Having a little water to hand helps in moulding. Now, it's quite important that this is the right sex. Now, this particular individual is a male, so we need to give him genitalia. It would be absolutely farcical to try and make a poppet that didn't at least have some semblance of the right sex. So let's be fairly generous in our proportions. I'm not sure the proportions are actually accurate to the individual concerned, but it's close enough. Now we need to add some more detail, and for adding detail, again, we don't use any metal objects. What I'm using here is the talon of a bird of prey. So we need to make a large mouth. I'll explain why later. And eyes. Now if you were doing a lady, you'd need more hair, but this is perfect for the individual concerned. Now just to finalise this and make this the individual we want it to be, we need to write their name on it. And whilst doing so, you'll be chanting and you'll be putting all your energies into this. I'm obviously not going to do that on camera, but you write their name with the talon. If you don't have a talon, use a thorn from a blackthorn bush or some such thing. What you don't do is use metal. Having done that, we butter a tray as you would if you were making any other form of bread. And then you take your poppet and allow it to rise. Now this poppet, the bread is starting to rise, but before we let it rise totally, the reason for the large hole in the mouth is this is now when we have to breathe life into our poppet. So what we would do is breathe into it, literally blow into the hole that is its mouth, concentrating all your energies onto this poppet as being the person we wish to hex or heal. Having blown in, close the mouth to keep all the energies inside. Then just draw a closed mouth across your poppet. And now we can allow it to rise properly. And so we've ended up with our finished product, which is this bread hexing poppet, full of the essence of the individual that you were hexing. Now what do you do with it? Well, what you do is you get some thorns from the blackthorn bush, or preferably old broken iron nails, and you pierce the body or head or whatever part of this poppet you want, and you take it and with some ritual bury it very close to where the individual lives, be it on their property or as close as you can get. And once this is buried, being bread, it decomposes very quickly. So as the days pass and this starts to decompose, your magic will permeate from it into your individual. If you've made a healing poppet out of clay, what you need to do now is to wrap it in a golden cloth and put it out under the full moon for 2 nights. It doesn't matter if the cloud's there, as long as it's a full moon nights, that's fine. And your poppet would absorb the energy of the full moon, and that will then pass out the healing energy to the individual you want healed. And because it's clay and it's not going to biodegrade so easily, every full moon you can strengthen and redo the healing energy if it's necessary. Now that's just about the end of this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, hope it was worthwhile, and thank you for watching. Bye.